Hello, everyone. Welcome to another installment of interviews with amazing graduates of YogaLife's training programs. And today we have Rebecca Cate with us, which is a real privilege. However, when I think of saying things like where she's from, it's a little bit of a long story that she's able to make very short. So Rebecca's just going to jump in and let us know where she's from and then how her yoga journey started. But there's a few pieces that may get told before that. So Rebecca,
All
how would
right.
you say where you're from when somebody says, where are you from?
So I was born and raised in the island of Guam, and that is in the Western Pacific. It is a US territory. Lived there for approximately 20 years. Eventually made my way stateside, lived 6 years in the West Coast, found my way to Pennsylvania, where I lived for 26 years, and just recently moved to the Houston, Texas area.
Probably raised two daughters in Pennsylvania.
Yes, that is correct. Raised two daughters in Pennsylvania, and they are now young adults and on their own.
That's beautiful. And I know your husband's doing well, and I think his job is what brought you to the East Coast. Is that right?
No, actually, it's his job that brought us to Texas.
Oh,
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's a good journey. And I think your yoga journey is equally as interesting, if I would call it more your journey in the healing arts or the fitness area.
I would go with healing arts. Yes, and it has been quite the journey, if you would like me to share.
Oh, definitely.
So, I lived in the Pennsylvania area, the greater Philadelphia area, for 26 years. And for 17 years, I was a personal trainer. And I chose that occupation because of the flexible schedule, and it allowed me to raise my daughters. Allowed me to be home when they needed me to be home, and I could do the training when they were at school. And what happened along the way as a personal trainer was that I started to notice that the same type of person gravitated towards me. And typically it was women between 35 to 60. And the overarching goal when they came in was, I want to lose some weight. Okay, well, as a personal trainer, that's well within my scope of practice. And along the way, I would form relationships, as one-on-one service usually results in. And I would get told over time, you should be a therapist. And at the time would giggle and say, no way. And so after 17 years of being a personal trainer, I decided to go to grad school and become a licensed professional counselor. That's the long story short. But the stepping stone was from being a personal trainer and realizing that the help that these individuals needed was beyond my scope of practice, and that they needed help that was beyond more than fitness training and nutritional coaching. So that's what led me to become a licensed professional counselor. So with that, I decided to go to YogaLife. I had discovered YogaLife actually back in 2003 when I was a personal trainer. And at the time, timing, finances just wasn't right. So I knew about Yoga Bob for a very long time. And I had graduated from school, was on my way to becoming a therapist, already practicing in the journey to become a licensed therapist. And I just decided, now's the time. Now's the time. I picked up the phone, had a talk with Bob, and I knew within, I don't know, what would you say? We talked 20 minutes, maybe 30, that I was going to sign up. And we had a call, and I believe I went down to the school a couple of days later and signed up. And so I did my TT1 training and really, really loved the program.
That's a 200-hour, the 200-hour teacher's training.
Yes.
What precipitated you to call us when there's so many options?
Well, At the time, do you remember that was it Yoga Journal that you guys put out? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
The
saw
yoga
those.
living.
Yoga Living, yes. So I saw that magazine for years and years and years. And I have to tell you, every time I saw one, I picked one up, I would read it and always would say, one day I'm going to go here. And so the decision had been made long before I even spoke to you. And so I was convinced that Yoga Life was
Gotcha.
where I wanted to be because of that magazine and that I really liked what I read. And so when I did speak with you, I knew it was that was it. I'm
Hmm.
like, I'm doing this. Finally, I get to go.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you can kind of let us know what that was, like what sorts of things you read, maybe when you did your yoga teachers training. What would you say came through for you?
Oh, definitely the yoga philosophy. And truthfully, at that point in my life, so again, this is around 2015, I was already working as a therapist and learning that it was very challenging. And so I was finding that I needed something else to support me. And I
Mm,
was looking for something that would help my mental, emotional health, support me through a challenging career. But also, I was really looking for more spiritual development. And I believe I found that within studying the Yoga Sutras. And so that
mm.
was really, really what it was really what I was attracted to was the philosophy. And how do I take yoga philosophy and apply it in life and in a very practical way? And I have to say that if it weren't for yoga, I don't know how well I would have managed through the first few years as a therapist, because I had some
Right.
very challenging times, and I would always go
Mm.
to yoga. It's like, okay, ahimsa, ahimsa was something I chanted in my head on a regular basis.
So if somebody doesn't know, ahimsa meaning nonviolence,
Right,
or which is kind of like a way of saying love,
right,
compassion.
right.
Yeah. And
Non-harm.
so I
Yeah.
not non-harm. And I think when you say the counseling was difficult, it was just having so many emotionally charged situations coming at you day in, day out. Is that right?
There was that, and over time I eventually learned how to manage that energy exchange.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right, which is that's a whole nother discussion that also came up through my contact with Yoga Life. But it wasn't just managing challenging client situations and all the emotions, because that's part of the job, it just is. But it was actually the back end of things, the administrative side, that there were challenges that, how shall I say, were well beyond my control. And that regardless of any of my intention, goodwill, positive actions, there was nothing that I could do to change certain situations that just were very difficult for me to navigate.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, so yoga philosophy, knowing you, I'm going to think that that means more than what we may what we may think. I think that means kind of practical philosophy, probably,
Yes.
right? Like actionable philosophy,
Yes.
right? Where like you incorporated then deep breathing, yoga poses, meditation.
Yes. And so just as a disclosure, not for me, and some people might be surprised by this, but I don't do a big asana practice, right?
Okay.
Because I'm a martial artist. For me, it really is about the philosophical observances, right? So non-harm, truthfulness, right? Non-attachment, non-ego. So practicing that as much as possible from one moment to the next. So that's very practical, because whether I'm living my personal life or living professional life, these are things that I really want to ground myself in. But
Mm.
yes, breathing. There is actually so much scientific study on breathing that I incorporate that into my psychotherapy. So, but for myself, breathing was a go-to. I can't tell you how many mornings I would wake up and just start with some yogic breath and then moving to alternate nostril breathing just to balance myself out so that I could start the day. Right.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
then I also learned about yin yoga and restorative yoga. So when I do asana practice, it is more yin, more restorative, more
So
reclined posturing.
again, just being the translator here, asana is the Sanskrit word that's commonly used for yoga poses.
Yes.
For what we would see people when we say yoga, we think they're doing a stretch. That's an asana. But yeah, so you're attracted to more gentle ones again because you do martial arts.
Yes.
That gives you a strong physical workout.
Yes.
In terms of the body. So then you tend to gentler yoga practices.
Yes. And most recently, I have been doing yoga nidra. So the yoga of deep rest.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Love to hear about that. So, so after you finished the teacher's training, you then chose to go further.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure, did you straight away go into yoga therapy training?
I believe there was a few months gap because if I recall correctly, and I think this is correct, I finished TT1 in March of 2016. And then the CYT1 started either in August or September.
You finished, the teacher's training in the March, and then you waited a few months, and then the school year starts the yoga therapy training.
Yeah.
And
so it was really just a few months.
Yeah. And then, so what is yoga therapy and why did you go in that direction after being a martial artist, personal trainer, and a certified counselor and a yoga teacher? Now you want to be yoga therapist. It's a lot of things.
So the comprehensive yoga therapy program, it just goes so much deeper. And again, I was very much drawn to what I learned about yoga philosophy in my teacher's training program that I just wanted to go deeper. And so that was the draw. And so, yes, I had the background of a personal trainer. So, stuff like being in front of a group, teaching a class, cueing, that stuff, that part I was already comfortable with. Then I already had the relationship skills required for that one-on-one relationship from personal training and also as a therapist. And then then there's martial arts. That's a whole nother thing. I just felt that for me, I wanted to take that deeper dive. I wanted to really go deeper with learning more about not just how to apply it for myself, but then how do I help others to adopt these same philosophical practices so that they too can then find more ease and less stress in their life and perhaps improving overall well-being.
Yeah. And that came through in your yoga therapy course. I can see how we do have, as you met, and we do have many counselors who like to bring this in, or physical therapists who like to bring in the emotional, and then a lot of psychotherapy type counselors like you, they bring in some of the physical practices because there's a mind-body aspect to the yoga. I'm just thinking, what are like a few examples that you use? How would you use this with somebody? So, for example, what would be some examples on how you would actually then put this into practice with your client?
So a psychotherapy client or a yoga therapy client, or just in general?
So when you have a psychotherapy client, do you have to tell them, hey, we're going to do yoga therapy, or does it get mixed up?
So I don't, upon having a new client, I do disclose that I'm a certified yoga teacher and a certified yoga therapist, and that I do incorporate yoga philosophy, but I don't necessarily call it out, right? I don't necessarily name it or label it. because I'll just talk it through. I'm a little bit biased to keeping language super simple. So for example, I wouldn't necessarily say, well, from a very koshic standpoint, koshas as in the layers of existence, I wouldn't necessarily say that to a client, but I would say, well, you know, when you're really feeling stressed out, do you notice what that does to your body? If you're feeling really stressed out, how does that affect your thinking? If you're really stressed out, do you notice that there might be a tendency for more emotions? You know, and when you're really stressed out, you know, I know that you really appreciate nature or that you go to religious services. When you're really stressed, how does it affect that? So that would be one way of layering yoga into a session without necessarily having to call it out. Hey, I just ran through your koshas, your layers of existence, right? So I just make it more practical and accessible.
Makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. It sounds like you're helping people make connections in between areas that they may not have been considering.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. So maybe one final quick question is, you've kind of answered it, but when you do teachers training with us and then you move to yoga therapy, there's obviously a more seamless connection between the two then, because what we do in the teachers training is somewhat aligned to the yoga therapy. Would you see that connection? Did you experience that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, when I reflect back on what I did in the teachers training, there was definitely substantial material and knowledge gained for me to go out and be a yoga teacher, to go teach in studios or online, etc. But like I said, I was searching for that deeper spiritual practice. And what I really, again, appreciate about YogaLife's teacher training program is that you are taught about yoga philosophy, the 8 limbs of yoga, and, you know, throughout the training program. And so for me, in learning about the CYT program, the Comprehensive Yoga Therapy program, recognizing that there was a deeper exploration with that. So to me, it was seamless, right? So I went into my CYT program really already having basic knowledge, and maybe then some, maybe a little bit more about what the 8 limbs of yoga are. And, you know, the restraints, the observances, breathing practices. I had already had familiarity with that. And I just wanted to go deeper. So to me, it was seamless. Right.
Nice.
So hopefully I answered that.
Yeah, definitely. And so now you bring it in with regular therapy clients, and then you have other clients that would be just strictly yoga therapy clients.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
And then you would practice just kind of that in its own kind of compartment.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're like a one-stop shop there. We can work out if we need to. You can show us a few things, and then you can straighten us out up here in our emotions. Yeah. And then we'll do some yoga and you'll take care of the whole bundle there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know,
fantastic.
To me, the beauty of yoga is that it really covers all areas of life. It really does. And so regardless of what one's goals are, yoga likely, high probability, can help you achieve those goals.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to share these thoughts with us.
Oh, you're most welcome. My pleasure.
All right, Rebecca. Have a good day in Texas.
Thank you.